you know, um, too much, too much stuff
Yeah.
to get into it. And like in Max, you really can't be like investigative journalism. Those guys, this you, you can't. I don't even know. I'm laughing. This shit's not even funny. Um, yeah, it's hard, dude. It's difficult to
Especially
know
in
like
Mexico, you know?
the well, yeah. I mean, like look at the former owner of Monterrey and all that shit came out once he was like incarcerated and then when he passed out.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, working at a bank and then using it to launder money for cartels, and then most likely was doing the same with his club and all, and but no one was gonna be putting him on blast. Imagine a newspaper or some reporter following him around. That's costing the whatever cartel is gonna, you know,
Yeah.
they're not gonna just sit by and let you expose someone like that.
All right. We got a few answers. We'll get into it and go as we speak. For those new to this, if you have anything you want to add on, we're gonna kick it off for a couple minutes, probably 30 minutes, and then we'll let you guys hop on and have some hot takes about the semis. But let me kick this off. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to La Cantina MX Football Podcast. This is going to be a spicy one. We have a semi-final. Both are clásicos, and we're going to be talking about how they got there. Some other news: Andres Guardado retires from the national team. Now we can praise him, and we'll reflect on his career and some of the problems with the national team. We also had some champions over the weekend. So Matias Almeida and Orbelin Pineda, champions of Greece. And of course, we can't not talk about Santiago Jimenez and his victories over there in the Netherlands. But before I go any further, let me welcome my good friend Joel to the podcast. Joel, how we doing?
I'm really good, and I know Jaime, you were throwing me under the bus with with Almeida with his big win in the Greek. He hoisted another championship, and Orbelin made another Mexican successful. I didn't see that get as much like in Twitter. Like I didn't see that go around as much as like Santiago or Chucky. Um, it's almost like people stop following Almeida or just don't care too much about the Greek league. I don't think that league has direct, like they don't have a direct ticket into Champions League.
They used to.
Uh, yeah, so they might have to do a playoffs. So let's hope because it could be what three teams, three Mexicans. Because what was it, zero this past one?
What are you talking about?
Champions League, there was like no Mexican representation in this.
Ajax and Napoli.
Who was saying that? Did they even make it for it? Someone was telling
Napoli
us in the podcast.
Napoli lost in quarters. Ajax, I'm pretty sure they lost in the round of 16.
Okay, I misunderstood. It was Al Pastor. He
Uh,
said he wanted to see more. It made the Champions League more exciting.
or maybe they didn't even get.
So,
No, they didn't even get out of the group stage. I'm sorry. Yeah,
oh, there you go. So now you know there's more.
yeah. So I mean, I didn't throw you under the bus, but I do remember you mentioning that Matias is very good at knockout tournaments, right? You saw him
Yeah,
in the Conca Champions and the Copa MX, and then even in the Mexican League, our format is we go into a knockout stage, and he did very
yeah,
well with that. And the whole criticism was, after he left Chivas, number one, he downgraded. He went to San Jose, which is
yes,
like the armpit of the MLS, and he did not have favorable results there, and that is like a long season format. They do have playoffs, and then now he goes to the Greek League, and this is I mean, I'm not really sure how the Greek League works, but I do think it's a long season format. So he did win in a long season format in Greece.
Yeah, and I think that for him it shows progress because he and when I started like going on on Almeida, I was more so when Chivas was doing bad, and the Chi hermanos kept asking like if he would have stayed, if he would have stayed. And I was saying his track record, like during the regular season, has never been good. So he did have promoted the on-field River, but that was second division. So we just look at first division. You could, you could easily Google his numbers with River Plate, Banfield, and it was mid-table. So not bad, but at the same time, like River Plate, not good enough. So they let him, they let him go. And then he came to Chivas, and his track record of qualifying to Liguilla was 50%. So out of 6 tournaments, he qualified to 3. And then the other 3.
I see.
And with his last 2 tournaments being pretty bad, he finished 15th and 17th. I think there was the season of when he finished 17th where he didn't win a single game at home. And so I'm like, dude, we kept seeing these reports that like, Ecuador national team or this EPL team or La Liga, and I kept thinking, are they watching the games? Because they, in the there's they have straight relegation, and yeah, but like you said, in knockout tournaments, he would do good. So he would do good at Copa MX. He won 2 of those. He won the Super Copa, which was the one-off against Veracruz, who former owner will be talking about.
Yeah.
I should say current owner, because there's going to be another Veracruz that is not the Veracruz he has. And then he ended up winning the Mexican League, and then he won the CONCACAF. So that's where he would look good through those tournaments. But if you were just to look at his record, just league, then it's like it looks pretty lackluster. But I mean, like you said, San Jose, he never managed to get that team off the ground.
Yeah.
Same because MLS is like split. So if you were to add the 2 conferences, I think they always fell between like mid to bottom table. And I mean, again, at the same time, they weren't really giving him much to work with. And I always did feel just from seeing the Chivas team he had of the Doblete season when they brought him a lot of good players. So I always felt like if he was to stay like in Liga MX and he would have a team like Tigres, Monterrey, Cruz Azul, that he would do well and have them playing really good. Because he did, like the Chiva games under him at that point were really fun to watch.
So I did a little bit of research. The way it works in the Greek League is there's 14 teams, and they play each other both home and away. So there's 26 regular matches in the season. After that, they break off into 2 groups. The groups that are going to be competing for the playoffs, and the other group that is trying to stay alive and not get relegated to the second division. So, yeah, after 26 matches, they go into sort of like a round robin format. They play 10 championship matches. And so in the regular season, his team ended up in second place with 59 points. And then
that was really good.
And then in the playoff, they ended up accumulating the most points and ended up with 83 to top the table. Yeah, such an interesting format. And then the winners of this championship go into the 3rd qualifying round of the Champions League. So they don't have a direct spot in the Champions League.
Got taken away, man.
Yeah.
Kind of fucked up because some of those leagues, they added like 3rd, 4th place to some of the other leagues.
Yeah, and this all goes back to how the national team performs in Europe, right? So the more the better your country does on the national level, the more spots you get in the league for Champions League. So
shit, I didn't know that. I thought it was club.
there's
I thought
a coefficient, like it's all related. Yeah.
Oh,
So like you've noticed like
based.
England, Spain, Italy, they almost basically always get like 4 spots. They get 3 direct and then the 4th qualifying, and then so these leagues, like even the French league, I think they've got more spots now over the years. And some countries that used to get like a spot don't get them anymore, and it's just like the level of how the country is doing in the Europa, the Euros and all that stuff. So yeah, it's pretty interesting how it's all been formatted in the last couple of years. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I'm gonna be playing devil's advocate here. Like, look, I'm happy for Matias and I'm happy for Orbelin Pineda, right? It's better than, I don't know, if he would have stayed in Mexico or whatever. And then you look at Santiago Jimenez and what he did with Feyenoord this season. But I'm not convinced that either league is as good as Liga MX. I think they're on the same level, if not a tier. I know for sure the Greek league is a tier below. The Dutch league,
yeah,
you can give it the argument that it's more consistent. Like they keep the level of competition consistency throughout the season. But I mean, apart from Ajax and PSV, man, let's be honest, dude. A lot of these teams wouldn't be able to hang with Liga MX. I think Liga MX could win most of these matches.
Yeah, no, I agree, dude.
But I understand that, taking the step into the Dutch league, obviously Ronaldo he started his career there at PSV. Obviously, you have a better chance of landing to a bigger club and having an amazing career. So I'm not trying to knock on the Dutch league. All I'm saying is I'm sure Cruz Azul and our friend Abdias would have appreciated if he had stayed a couple more seasons and tried to win some silverware.
If we would have stayed more seasons,
they could sure use him right now, is all I'm saying.
Oh.
He's on mute.
What's up, man? No, I was having some issues with my audio. I couldn't hear jack shit. I had to leave and come back.
Oh. No, yeah, we were just mentioning like how you probably would have appreciated having Santi Jimenez right now, and did he leave premature for you guys?
I don't think so, because of the toxicity of the Mexican league and just kind of how it all plays out. He was able to leave because if we remember at the moment when he left, it was a controversial moment. Okay, he was heating up. He left like early. All right, let's remember the Mexican league is a little bit weird. So kind of towards the end, like the finishing phases of the early season is when he left. He was leader de goleo, but the season before, man, it had taken him forever to get back on track with a goal again. Luckily, because of who he is, La Afición stayed behind him and like really supported him and did all that. But he struggled for a long time. And then internally, if you like the Cruz Azul fans, a lot of the media and anything that was coming out, it was like, what's going on with Santi? And he was sick. He was having a lot of health issues, X, Y, and Z. And that's why when you hear him speak, one of the biggest things that he says is like, you have to find God first, your Lord and Savior, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes through that route. I think he left at just the right time. It's kind of like Orbelin. Fuck, bro. I miss Orbelin. Orbelin was balling out in Cruz Azul.
Yeah.
Oh, same
he's over there winning it, right? So they both left Cruz Azul. Unfortunately, Orbelin left through the back door. Santi left through the front door because of who his dad is. He's a club legend. And then it just kind of went from there. I am excited to see what he becomes. To see what happens. Because let's be honest, El Pinche Mame has been over 3,000. All right?
And I want to shut this down right now. There's a lot of people saying, oh, this is the example. Like, look at him willing to take a pay cut and take his chances over there in Europe, and more players need to be like him. Number one, his circumstances are a lot different from most Mexican players, right? He's equal to Papi, right? He comes from money. His dad was a successful player. I don't know if they would have given him a look if it wasn't because of his connections and who his dad was that he even had this opportunity, right? So his situation is not the same as a lot of young kids, and
They would have given him a look. They wouldn't have
yeah,
given him the patience.
exactly.
Because that's the big thing. Porque hasta yo, I was like, chingao, mijo. Like, nomás porque no tenemos delantero. Like, because that was it. That's all that he was doing, right? He was holding on the spot and he had ups and downs. He won el título con Cabecita because that year, con Cabecita, he missed out on a lot of goals. He didn't really come into play until the final, where he scored the most decisive goals and he did a lot of work in there. So it's one of those things where I don't think he I don't think we would have given him the time that he needed in Mexico, because one of the big things in Mexico is we want results, right? And we want results now. And part of the big conversation was when Santi first left, it was like, oh, que va a ser titular. And then llegó and nothing. Danilo is in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there was that concern of like, oh, is he gonna suck? Is he gonna just be stagnant? Is it just another bench warmer?
Yeah.
And then here we are. He's been doing it right. Even when he left, I said it. I was like, good. He's going and he's training under Robin van Persie. He's training under the big names, right?
Yeah.
This is exactly what we want. And I will say, yes, this is the model to take, right? And I get it. And we've had this conversation before of like the Mexican player isn't willing to go out and picar piedra anymore. What? Who is? The Argentinians are. The Brazilians are. The children of diaspora. And there's something in Mexico that makes you way too comfortable, and the paycheck is too good.
You get paid a lot.
Mm-hmm. So no tienes
Well,
que
that's
picar
it.
piedra when you have your creature comforts here.
No, but I mean, they would have done the same too. You know, like not every player wants to leave. It's a lot of them, and you see it from interviews. That's the best thing of listening to some of these interviews. That especially now we get more because of podcasts and whatnot. But they'll say stuff like if they could have stayed at home, they would, or so for some players, of course, that's like their dream to play in a big club in the Champions League and do all of that. But a big majority of them, not so much, man. They eventually get tired because it's like this routine of like they have to follow these like rules of going to bed and what they can eat and what they can't eat and training, and it's like a daily, and the traveling, and traveling can be exhaustive, man, like, especially if you're doing it week in week out, just always in airports and on the road. And let's keep in mind a lot of these guys been doing that since they're 12 already, like doing tournaments and living in casa club. And so it's like it gets to the point where like I'm tired of this shit. I don't really want to do it. There's always, of course, exceptions of like people that love that shit, and they'll just, or they retire, go into coaching, and like look at Tuca, he's like 70 and he's still doing all of this. But not everyone's built like that. I do think that's why, I guess, just long story short, I guess that's why I'm not so harsh on the players that like don't want that.
You also
See,
gotta
man, and
remember Mexican culture
go ahead.
too, man. One's gonna move away from their tacos, their salsa verde, their salsa roja, the music, the Mexican comedy. You're not gonna get comedy like Mexicans anywhere else in the country, man.
That's
Those
true.
albures, that everything. The smelly guy that they call Simba, and you're like, why Simba? Por sin bañarse, you know. Like that's too the lifestyle. It's another thing. Leaving everything that you know, it's not an easy choice. And on top of that, you're
Yeah.
getting paid well to stay home.
Yeah, they're paying
Yeah,
you well.
dude.
You know the language. You don't have to leave your comfort zone, and a lot of players don't necessarily need to leave the domestic league to be considered a success, right? You've had a lot of players that really had their entire career in Liga MX, and they're considered great players. Claudio Suarez, one of the most capped players, right? He never left to Europe, and everyone calls him the Emperador, right? So
And like even on modern day players, you know who's a perfect example of that to me? Mozo, Alan Mozo. Alan Mozo to me is not a Mexican national team player. He's not a European level player, but he's a great Liga MX player. He did well with Pumas. He's doing well with Chivas. I'm sure he'll tell you he wants to leave Europe, but if we're being realistic, he has zero chance. But Liga MX though, he's a great Liga MX player. I love that guy. And that's a guy that's like, why doesn't he leave? I'm like, because he's perfect for Liga MX. There's no reason for Alan Mozo to leave.
But then it comes into play with one of the things that we were talking in the last cast, right? Of like, hey, cuando los ves a ellos jugar, ¿verdad? La diferencia entre la pasión de ellos y nosotros, ¿verdad? So, because for them, there is no other way. There is no other way forward. Like last time we were talking, well, why does Argentina do this and that? Because they have four lower levels to support their Primera División, right? So these kids, like you said, have been grinding since 12, but guess what? They don't have another choice. They don't have any other way. And that's where you get that passion. When you get that ties get, I don't know where my next meal is going to come because the only thing that I can really do and that I've been doing since I was 12 years old was kicking the ball.
Yeah, for sure.
And honestly, relegation promotion has a lot to do with that. Like, look at Napoli; they just won Serie A. But I also look in Italian soccer. There's like what 10 divisions, over 9,000 teams, a part of those 10 divisions. So to reach the pinnacle of success, it means so much because it's so difficult. But when you have a league where it's always gonna be the same 18 teams with a chance, also that passion kind of wears out as well from like the regional levels.
Well, some teams stay complacent, because there's no real, um, if you suck, you just pay a fine, slap on the wrist, but you're not going to the second division, and I think that needs to change. We'll see. They keep talking about how they are going to bring back relegation in Liga MX, but I don't believe until I see it. While we're on the topic of like players taking the chance and going to Europe and establishing themselves, Andres Guardado announced his retirement from the national team, as if we needed to take a guess or wonder. But now that we have closure on this, like, and reflecting on his career, I mean, ended up becoming the most capped Mexican national player with 179, and he's been to 5 World Cups. And he left at a very young age, right? I mean, he was only at the Atlas till 2007, and since then he's been in Europe. So his entire career has been in Europe, which is pretty impressive, to stay relevant and to still be part of like the starting lineup too. Even now at Betis, he's still part of the starting lineup, something that Linus couldn't do. So just want to know what your guys' thoughts on Guardado's career has been, and if you guys would consider him one of the best players of all time in Mexico.
I put him top 10 for sure. You know, recent memory, if you think about Guardado, you think about he's too old, he should have retired sooner, this and that. You know, we already know you retired. Why didn't Hector Herrera retire with you, take him with you, all that?
Yeah.
But if you're being like objective and you look back in the day, Andres Guardado, 17-year-old kid playing against Argentina, you know, that like disrespect he had for that team in that World Cup game. And us, most of us, you know, being young kids during that 2006 World Cup
Oh yeah.
game, just like the inspiration, like, wow, this 17-year-old Mexicans going against like these powerhouses. Then you see him go to Europe and like every league, every team he played in, he was the starter. He was doing well, and then you see him transition from like left back, left wing to like center mid, and then
Yeah.
the teams he goes to, he's a captain and he's lifting titles everywhere. He has a huge presence in the locker room. So yes, if you look at him from an objective point of view, from how he started at 17 years old to what he's done now, and he's always been like a reference player on his teams. He's easily top 10 Mexico's history for what he's done in Europe, and he deserves all the respect in the world. But will I be one of the clickbait guys and say, Guardado, you took too long? You should have retired last year? Yeah, but objectively, easily top 10 in my eyes.
Yeah. And I got to give him credit because when he went to Valencia, I think he didn't get the success that he thought he was going to have. He got loaned out to Bayer Leverkusen, and his career took a dip there, right? He was only there for a short time, and then he rejuvenated his career at PSV. He kind of had to take a step back to take a step forward, right? Like going to the Dutch league compared to the Bundesliga or La Liga, maybe not as competitive, but I mean, the fans just loved him and embraced him as one of their own. And I think he spent some time there with Hector Moreno too, right? They were both at PSV together, and yeah, just an incredible career. And then he goes to Betis and then just kills it, man. Like 163 appearances for Betis. That's incredible. They won a Copa del Rey and stuff. Like, yeah, it's awesome. I don't know if we're gonna have another guy like Guardado. I'm looking at this new generation, bro. I don't know if they have the mindset to do it.
I think Orbelin does. He just needs a chance, not get screwed like how Celta did.
But I don't know if already I would say Orbelin's not even close to what Guardado has already done, right? At that same age. How old is Orbelin? He's like 26 or something, right? 27?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, if you factor in the age, you're right. But I think if Orbelin gets a shot, he could have like a good 6-7 years in Europe.
Well, let's not forget Orbelin has something that Guardado will never have, and he has an NCAA championship because he came and he played in the U.S. his college career.
He did?
Yeah.
Where?
He played in the U.S. I want to say UCLA.
Nah, you're tripping, dude.
No facts.
Way.
Yeah.
Nah,
yeah.
I
His
don't
parents
believe
are in the U.S. the Mojaditos. That's why they couldn't go see him play in Mexico. There was a really fucking heartbreaking story about it.
I think you got mixed up with somebody else, dude.
Yeah,
Oh, guys, I'm about to pull this one. Hold on.
What college?
Orbelin Pineda?
Nah, I don't
UCLA.
believe.
No way, bro. I'm googling Orbelin Pineda UCLA right now, and
I don't see
ain't
anything
nothing popping up.
Nah, it's probably somebody else, dude.
Yeah, you're thinking about somebody else. You're gonna tell me everyone's like deleted everything from the internet? I don't see anything about.
Isn't he
Orbelin.
from like where's he from? I know he's like
There's a
Guerrero. Yeah. Yeah, Abdias, I think you might have
I'm
mixed
gonna find it, guys. Hold on. I'll find it. No pedo.
Are you sure you're not thinking about a female player? There's a lot of Mexican players that played at UCLA.
He got his sources from mediocierto.com.
That futbolero site.
That futbolero site, yeah. Yeah.
No, that's cat.
It's gonna be a while till we see another player like Guardado, and just how he, like you mentioned, he took up multiple positions. He had the speed, left back, then winger, and then center midfield, and still has the legs to go up and down the pitch. Man, that's impressive. I hope they do like a match in his honor whenever Mexico has a match in Mexico, because they have all their friendlies out here, but it would be nice for him to get the recognition he deserves.
No, for sure, he deserves it. I mean, if players like Cuauhtemoc, who was another legend, got a despedida, Guardado deserves one as well. But the thing is that Mexican memory is so short, because if you look to the Mexican social media sites, as far as like his announcement of the retirement, like so many of the reactions are like the laughing faces, and you go to the comments, they're all like dissing on them. And I'm like, I get where you guys are coming from, but if you think if you're only taking the last year into consideration, but if you look at his whole career as a 17-year-old kid leaving Mexico and everything he's managed to accomplish, nothing but respect to him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it reminds me of like what Marquez. He left at a very young age from Atlas to Monaco, right? And that was kind of like unheard of at the time for a young player to do that, as he was just getting capped by the national team. I mean, he won that 99 Confederations Cup and then got shipped out to Monaco. So pretty impressive. And another thing too, to like look at this objectively, we have not produced enough competition in the last I don't know, like maybe 5 years. Like the fact that he was still getting capped for the national team, made it to 179, made it to 5 World Cups. It tells me something. It tells me that we are not producing enough talent. We're not producing enough competition. And the fact that this man can still make it to the roster of the World Cup at the age of 35 is a little bit alarming.
No, I completely agree. Like that was one of my critiques as well. Like Guardado should be on the team, but then you look at like, all right, who should take his place? Like Guti that plays for PSV. You cannot tell me that Guti is superior to Guardado in any way. And maybe Guardado's not superior to him, but there's like no reason to say besides maybe youth that Guti should be starting. But it's like Ancelotti says, I don't care about youth, I don't care about age, I care about who's a better player on the field.
Yeah.
And Guti cannot say that he's a better player than Guardado, so he can't even knock him off of the starting position.
And we've had like Pizzuto, right? He went to what Lille in France, and unfortunately he got injured. And then you also had who was that guy from America that went to Belgium?
Gobert?
Gobert. Yeah, you've had him. He hasn't really like panned out. Like
Is
we,
he back in Mexico?
I don't know where he is nowadays, but
Did Monterrey bring somebody back?
he is at. Yeah, he's on Monterrey.
Yeah, I was pretty sure he. I haven't even seen him play that much.
I
Honestly.
know. Yeah, I mean you've had players like go to Europe and they just haven't panned out.
I found the info on Orbelin.
Oh,
He did not play in the U.S.
That's what I thought, dude.
It happens to me too, Avidas.
Things happen.
My brain writes fan fiction of.
So who's the UCLA soccer guy? Who was he
It must be
confused with?
something.
You know what? I'm doing that deep dive right now. Wait, hold on.
He
No fumen
Pineda from his he was from a small town. And he said he didn't even have like internet and just poor. And he ended up trying out for Querétaro and he made their under 15 team. And he stayed with them. He ended up being in the squad. They had Ronaldinho when Querétaro was there. And I said Ambriz was already, I don't know if he was playing them or he took him to the first team. Not sure if he got playing time, but it happens a lot with when they see the promising players, they bring them up to practice with the first team. So then he got sold to Chivas, but no, I think he was confusing it with the Mumu goal when they cross the border and then he gets scouted playing the Cascarita. Yeah, dude, he's
the
not.
bootleg version of the Goal movie. In the college scene.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think just really quick on something we were mentioning about players that come from really poor families and situations, and then when they make it, they sort of like will lose some of that. Uh, forgot what it's called, but you know, some of that drive to want to do better because they sort of made it in the fact that they were able to buy like property, maybe put an OXXO and pay out debt and all that. But this guy, you've seen that he still has maintained that drive and stayed in Europe despite taking a pay cut, and it's paying off for him. So I think that's when you see difference in mentality between certain players. And some of them are willing to do that, and some just they don't care for that.
Yes, I mean, for these players, I will always wish them the best, and you always hope that the club gives them the best resources like financial advisors, mental coaches, things like that. But at the same time, I can't judge them because if you think about it, if you come from the slums, from 0 to 15 to 17, 18, once you actually start making that, all you know is the slums. Sometimes you don't even, you have one meal a day, and now you're making thousands, hundreds of thousands a month, millions a year. and all of a sudden you're supposed to become the expert of how to manage all
Yeah.
that money, all that temptation, when you literally had nothing. So that's why it's very hard for players to stay at that peak through of their career, for 5, 10 years. That's why you see players have 2, 3 good years and then they fall off, and you don't hear from them again. But I can't judge her, man. You can't be used to nothing and then have the whole world in front of your face. And that's where it comes to the club. That's where the club needs to give them the resources to
You
keep them
know,
level headed.
I was reading that book that Ray Roscoe had recommended, the Soccernomics book, and they were talking about how he was surprised how many clubs would sign a player, from a different background, like Latin players. They said that they really had a really hard time transitioning from South America to England and Italy and all that stuff, because the club would just send them on a plane, and sometimes they wouldn't even pick them up, or they put them in a hotel and did not give them the resources they needed to make to be comfortable and like find a house and have a translator and all that stuff, like the financial part of it. And a lot of these players would just wouldn't pan out. And then there was a transition, or like a epiphany with some of these clubs that realized, hey, we need to give these players the resources they need to make sure that all they have to worry about is to play soccer. They don't have to worry about where am I going to live, the translator and all that stuff, and the money part too, right? And I guess like out of all the clubs, like Milan is like really really good at doing that. Like by the time you get your contract and sign it, you already have like a personal chef, a driver, a house ready for you, and like your family's already got a bunch of school recommendations. Like they take care of everything. And I guess like more and more clubs are starting to do that right now. And I feel like in Mexico they should do that with all these kids, right? Because especially with like the money part and not knowing how to handle fame and excuse me, we heard Aguirre talk about how he would give young players like advice and stuff, and we definitely need more of that in Liga MX.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know why it would take clubs so long, because at the end of the day, it's your investment. If you're going to pay someone stupid amounts of money, you think you want them to pan out. You don't want to keep recycling through different signings every transfer window. I think, who was it? Mourinho was talking about that some clubs spent so much money on the transfer window and that the other club barely spent anything. And he's like, but who did that club keep? And he's like, well, they kept these stars. He's like, that's better than doing signings, because you're keeping all your stars. You're
Mhm.
keeping your original investments that are panning out. But and then there's like behind the scenes stuff that we don't know about. I saw Tevez today. He gave the reason why he never learned English.
Oh yeah.
Everyone always makes fun of him. He was talking about one of his uncles who was a River Plate fan. He got called up for the war, and then it really ruined him. He was like 17, about to go pro. He became an alcoholic. Like he went down the drain, and he was like, to me, English culture was just a job, but I despise it. I had zero intention of ever learning it. I was just there to collect a check. It's not because he was stupid and didn't want to learn English. It's not because he couldn't learn English. He just had zero interest in learning
But he learned Chinese.
that.
That interesting what you said, Jaime, about because you were saying how Mexico should do that, or at least
Yeah.
offer to take in the Mexican league. The club should do that. I should
Hmm.
clarify. And it did remind me of Alexis Vega when he did that interview, and he talked about how he wasn't in Toluca yet. He wasn't like he didn't have a contract, but he was like one other. Um, they have like a division or like a group of like players that they keep calling back for training and tournaments, and then out of those, they end up giving contracts for them to stay at their clubhouse, which is for the youth. And he said how he went to talk to the trainer, and he was like, "I can't afford to make this trip. Can you let me stay in the clubhouse?" And he's like, "We can't because it's you need a contract for that." So he just stopped going. He said he didn't go anymore. They went to look for him, and they were like, all right, you could stay. he, he, he can sleep there. He can sleep on the couch. But it's crazy that you know, like you were saying, it's to that point where they're gonna lose a top prospect just because of that. Like they kind of didn't even have that, at least that foresight to be like, let's pay your like travel expenses at the very least, or give them or have food there for them, you know? Because yeah, he would talk about that, and it's kind of similar of like Ronaldo, El Fenomeno, where one of the bigger clubs, I don't know if it was Flamengo or Fluminense, but same thing where he couldn't afford to make the trips, and the club wouldn't pay for it, so he ended up at another club,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like just for not, you know, not
Joel, I am so happy that you brought this up because obviously my credibility is already shot. But yes, this is a
Oh no,
major
it's not. I do
problem.
that a lot, dude. I like
uh,
your story better though. So
my, you know what, bro?
in my mind,
I dead ass think that
Orbelin. I'm gonna tell my
they
kids
lied
that
to me.
Orbelin was an NCAA champion there, and his parents couldn't cross the border.
You know, man. You know what, man? We all know Televisa
Writing
lies
Cruz
to us.
Azul
All
fan
right,
fiction out here.
That
it
makes
works
for a
pretty
better
well.
Netflix movie.
It, yo, bro, the loop that's happening over here, what I'm writing, just wait. All right. Pero this is one of the big problems that happens in the youth development across Mexico, right? Like, yo, these kids are popped, man. Like, if you guys saw that shitty American documentary on Netflix, right? Where who is it? Um I can't remember, but they're talking about how long their trips had to be as growing up, going to the trainings, and all they had was a piece of bread, right? So these kids are poor. They don't have anything else. They can't even make it through the lower ranks. So why aren't we bolstering those lower ranks? Like what's happening there? And like you said, a major talent was almost lost just because he couldn't make rent anymore because of the expenses of keeping up. So this is one of those big problems that we're seeing. It's like, well, why isn't there development? Why, we keep importing, we keep having all these issues. Well, then systemically, we are broken as well because we can't support our even lower ranks within our teams, our canteras.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even when they make it, is they also need that support. Because going back to Alexis, he was saying after they came back from that month of games, he was expecting like 15,000 pesos in his account, which is a little bit over $800. And there was actually 1.8 million pesos in his account, which is $102,000. So my thinking is, if this kid is expecting $800 and I'm about to deposit $102,000 into his account, you don't think I would give him a warning? I might send a financial advisor over. Then fans are complaining 3 months later. How come his Instagram's all Jordans? Because he could never buy them. Now he can. Like, no financial advice, no nothing. How are you gonna give somebody take him from $800 to 100,000 in a month, and not even give him a financial advisor or some resources or even a warning that you're gonna deposit that money on there?
You see that 100K in your bank account? You know what you're gonna get? Tachas y perico.
here's, here's dude, here I found it on the wiki on Ronaldo, and he says he was turned down by Flamengo. The team is supported as a boy after missing practice due to an inability to afford the fare for the hour-long bus ride. That whoever
Damn.
kicked him out was be kicking themselves in the ass, dude.
Ronaldo had a lot of like bad luck throughout his career. He had a really stubborn coach at Inter called Hector Cooper, and he said
Argentine.
that he said that he was the worst coach ever because they would they would train like they would make them run like 8 or 9 kilometers every practice, and he said that that had a lot of wear and tear on his knees, and then he just didn't play him. Like he refused to play Ronaldo, and like everyone kept saying like leave him alone, like you know you don't tame like a wild bull, you know like Ronaldo's good, just let him do his own thing. But for some reason Cooper was just being so he was being so hard headed and still made him overtrain.
Them boomers, man.
Yeah, he was very defensive. That part too. You end up at a club with a coach that I think they said he was too defensive for the Italian league. I think that says a lot.
Yeah. Well, folks, we've made it this far without talking about the results over the weekend, and I want to say it's an interesting Final Four that we have. Some would say maybe even scripted, but we had a 13th place Santos keep Monterrey at bay in the first leg 0-0. It was probably one of the boring matches out of all of them. And then, of course, in Monterrey, Rayados had a better luck, and they ended up winning 2-0. And I don't know, man. Like I'm just a anti-Vuse fan, and I hate the way Monterrey plays, and they're in first place, but I am not convinced about this team at all. Then we had America and San Luis, which was probably one of the more entertaining ones out of all of them. San Luis lost at home 3-1. And then on the return leg, they were up 2-0 on their way to a third goal. But in the end, America did score and ended up making it to the semifinals. However, for the first time in like 25 matches, they did drop a loss at home, even though they got through on aggregate. And, you know, America coming into this semifinal a little bit unconvincing. And I know we have Ron with us tonight. Maybe he can give us his take on America and how they will match up against Chivas.
I thought it was to be expected. I thought the team was going to be a little complacent, and I'm sure it was. You know, the first half they were complacent, and it seemed like they weren't playing with urgency. I mean, honestly, I'd rather have this hiccup right now than in the semis or in the final. You know, I think sometimes that kind of scare can it's a double-edged sword. You know, it could build into something worse, or it could take off some of the pressures. Like, okay, well, because they've been talking about the team only lost once in the entire season and blah blah blah. Whatever. Sometimes you need a rude awakening, and I think I honestly think that they're a disciplined enough team that they'll get over it. And obviously, I mean, Chivas, believe it or not, I think Chivas has more pressure because of what happened during the season. Because I mean, Chivas just got outplayed, bad, like really bad.
Oh, they got exposed pretty easily.
Yeah, they did. So I mean, I think psychologically, I think that's going to play a role in stuff like that.
Yeah. And we'll get into Chivas in a little bit. I do want to talk about how they got here, and that was against Atlas, right? The first game in El Jalisco, and they did a really good job of boxing out all the Chivas fans. It was primarily a Atlas crowd, although it was pretty empty, to be honest, for a quarterfinal. And I'll be honest, like a non-existent penalty goes in our favor. Pocho Guzman misses. And, in these type of scenarios, el que perdona pierde. And that's exactly what happened. Atlas scored. And we were very lucky to just concede the one goal. I think the best player on the pitch for Chivas was the Poste, like at least 2 or 3 times. And then in the return leg as well, Chivas managed to scrape a win and get through on a tie. And it was a very, very frustrating match and leaves a lot of uncertainty with how far Chivas can go. As far as like the pressure and the expectations, it's crazy how different perspectives we have. With America, them failing to make the final would be considered a fracaso for their coach and for the club. Meanwhile, for Chivas, like us getting to the semifinal is considered a win.
That right there bothers me though right now because I mean I'm already hearing pundits talking about that if America doesn't win, that they need to get Tano out, and I'm like, well, replace him with who? You know, I mean it takes a while. You know, I mean I honestly thought that they thought that they were going to win it last season. They fell short.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't think you should be wanting to put them on the chopping block already, even if they don't win the season. I really don't. I think that if they do fall short, obviously they'll have the summer to because I mean honestly, there are some players on that team that that have no business being on that team anymore. Like Viñas, Layun, I think it's just a matter because he's going to retire soon. In fact, he actually he said that this could be one of his last playoffs in his career. So I mean, and he's aware of that. Martinez, Roger Martinez, that guy to me, I don't see why.
I put him there with a paycheck at this point.
I know, honestly, I see him as Fantic, part 2. I mean, I don't know how the hell he got with that team. I mean, congrats to his agent. It is. It's just the guy. I mean, the guy plays only in one speed. I mean, he just has no vision. I mean, I've never been really happy with the way he plays. Viñas, I had high hopes for, but it seemed like he just, I don't think he's going to recover. So I mean, there's some players that I think need to leave. But I mean, obviously, I don't want to talk about that right now because obviously the season's still going on right now. But like I said, I'm already starting to hear the pundits talk about if America crashes out of the semifinals, because I mean losing in the semifinals sucks, but they're already talking about, oh man, but if they lose to Chivas, it's an even bigger embarrassment.
Yeah.
You need a clean house and blah blah blah. It's like, come on, it sucks, but it would suck, but I wouldn't start I wouldn't start from scratch.
But
Hold on. So you would say it's a bigger embarrassment to lose to Chivas than it would have been to lose to San Luis? Bro, San Luis had you guys on the ropes. Your team was under duress. All right? El culo le sudó a todos.
Was San Luis ever in the semifinals at any point?
I don't need history. What's happening now? What happened that game? In the cosa de Mexico, it's the way that you play and the way that you lose. That's why the pundits are talking about getting them out.
No. In the 2 games, was San Luis ever qualified to the semis?
No.
Exactly.
You know why? Por la jalada que hizo el América a couple years ago, right? Hey, give me back aggregates.
Here's the thing.
What would have happened?
America, they should have even called a couple penalties in favor of America in the first leg, so it shouldn't even been that close.
Yeah.
If anything, San Luis was lucky to even have a chance.
It's just, I think it's crazy that they did have a chance. I think that's the part that like kind of blows everyone away. Is like this shouldn't even have been this close, but it was.
No. And it's funny because like I've been and Joel knows me. I've been saying this. He's not 20 years. America doesn't get favored by the refs. In fact, I've always argued that the refs have a hard time, calling games with America because I don't know, call it the pressure. I don't know.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't, right?
Exactly. So I mean, it seems that America always tends to get fucked over by the officiating. So like I said, I mean, did they have a couple hiccups in that San Luis encounter? Like yeah, sure. What 45 minutes out of what? One half out of the 4? Come on. Yeah, it sucked. But it's not the disaster that some of the pundits are making it out to be.
My dear good sir, you guys didn't score until the 70-some. It was late in the game.
And
your win was out of your sails.
88,
right? It was late as fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't looking good for you guys. And the only reason why you were going to go through es porque lloraron la vez pasada que los sacaron por por el gol de visitante. So for that bullshit, you were moving through. So es de las maneras que pierdes. And that's why the pundits are talking about it. Just like when Siboldi sat down, put his hands in his pockets and sat down, like, fuck, Toluca me está metiendo el chorizo.
No, they
get up. You're about to get fired.
They did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know,
One thing I learned from that series, though, is that at halftime, the Azteca was booing the America players. And those are the same guys that boo the Mexican national team.
Yep.
I was like, if it reaches the last 10 minutes and San Luis is up 3-0, you know that puto chant's going to come out too. And Henry Martin had to come out and say, why are you guys booing us? Like, later, like, I think he came out today and said it. He's like,
he should have said that.
He posted, he said, why are we getting booed at 45th minute? He's like, if the game's almost over and we're losing and it's done, I get it because we didn't get the result we wanted. But he's like, it's the 45th minute. You should still be supporting us at least till the end or when it looks like it's a wrap.
He should have said that. That's like mental midgetry right there. That's almost like, what's his name, the Chivas player that say, what's his name, the one that was, oh, please don't boo us. It hurts our feelings.
That's Fabian.
Fabian. It's like, come on. I don't. He should have said that. I get it. Trust me. I understand and I agree with him. But I think that it kind of like how that backfired on Fabian. I just, I think that players need to have that thick skin and just be quiet. Even though I agree with the sentiment, that for those 90 minutes, you need to support your team, and if you need to vent and rant, once the whistle blows, okay, I get it. But
this is the Azteca. This is the Azteca, man. Y'all should already know.
I've said for years now that I think Amet needs to move out of the Azteca and just build their own, stadium, 45, 50,000,
That would be
They
pretty
did build
cool.
their own. It was called the Azteca.
So, well, like I said, I don't know. It's
Well,
just,
in England they have like the what is it called?
Wembley for the national
Wembley.
team.
Like, they have a dedicated stadium for the national team, and then all the other teams in London have their own specific stadium, right? I don't know if that. What I will say is that Cruz Azul needs their own stadium for sure.
Yeah, I want El Azul back or something like that. You know what? No, I want fuck El Azul. El Azul flooded all the time. All right.
Yeah.
And you guys remember that? That was horrible.
I was thinking about this. By the way, is Cambia Reyes here? Is he on the podcast right now?
I don't think so.
No, because I was thinking, because America, I mean, they play San Luis and, they have the stripes. And then if they're going to play Chivas, they have the stripes. And if they advance and they play Monterrey, obviously the stripes.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I'm wondering who he's going to root for, because he's always rooting for, that's why we call him Cambia Reyes,
Yeah. There is one more team in this semifinal, Tigres. They had a incredible first match, 4-1, and you have like Mr. October in baseball, but Gignac just shows up in these Liga matches, and he's always a threat. And then in the second leg, man, it really felt like, oh, here we go. Nacho Ambriz gonna have a crazy comeback, and in the end, it was actually Gignac with an incredible play, set it up for Sebastian Cordova to secure the next round for Tigres. And how much of a fraud is Nacho Ambriz now?
Is he a fraud, though?
No, he's a good coach, dude.
I know.
He's a good coach.
But he has choked in these last couple of Toluca, right? And they lost pretty bad against Pachuca, and then now you get eliminated by Tigres. I don't know, man. He's fallen short.
Like he fucked up on
That's everybody. I mean, Bucetich, Ferretti, Lafuente, all those guys, dude. I mean, the fact that he's there, putting his team in a position to play the final. That's really all you can ask.
They lost 8-2 though, man. 8-2 in the Pachuca final last year.
It
Yeah, I
doesn't
mean
matter.
that's the thing,
That's
but
it.
those are accents of the game too. I mean, I wouldn't call it a fraud, I would call it a fracaso because that was on Breeze's own words. He says if we don't make it to the final, it's a fracaso. So that's him. But at the end of the day, there's what 8 teams going into the playoffs. Is one a winner and the other 7 are frauds? Not everybody can win. I wouldn't go as far as call him a fraud. He's a good coach. He has a good team. Are they falling short? Yes. But I don't think that necessarily makes him a fraud. I mean, he's done results with Leon. He's done results with Toluca. He's just falling a little short right now. But he'll be back to a
But
final.
that's every coach. I mean, every successful coach, going back from Treyes, El Güero Cárdenas, La Puente, or stuff like that. I mean, it's not like they won every season, but they were always, you know, knocking on the door. I mean, they were always up there. So I think he's a really good coach, and I think in the future I think he'll get his shot. His teams, I like the way his teams play, and I agree with a lot of like the people. It's like, I mean, I don't think any coach in the league has his curriculum.
Yeah, he really checked off a lot of boxes as far as like who should be eligible to coach the national team, but in the end he wasn't picked, right? And
Yeah,
you look at the results he's had with Toluca since he's returned to Mexico after he failed to make a splash in Spain. He even went to the second division to even have an opportunity. And
yeah.
and like you gotta give him credit for that. But at the same time, man, like this
I mean,
doesn't
like
look
I
good.
was,
This doesn't look good for him. Is all I'm saying. Like he finally got the reinforcements that he wanted. Right. That was one of the criticisms that he was when he first joined Toluca and he didn't have a successful season. He finally got like Volpi and all these players, and he's gotten them to a final, and then they just got absolutely demolished. And then now you get eliminated by Tigres, and it's just like has he reached his like plateau, right? Like, is this as far
no,
as he can take Toluca?
no, dude.
But how
That
much
guy,
is it on the
he's got
players too?
he's got years ahead of him, dude. He really does, and it's like I was, when Nacho was in the mix, for the national team, and they were talking about like, oh man, just the Mexican coaches, they're not ambitious and blah 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 blah. I mean, for example, I was looking at the Argentine league, and they have what 30 or almost close to 30 teams in the first division, and I was going, club by club. Out of those 20 something, 28 something teams, 20 something teams, only one had coaching experience in Europe. What do you call it? I forget what's his name from Bayern. He coached, and I think he also played in Bayern Munich. So it's like, well, I mean, Nacho Ambriz is really the only one that has European experience, in terms of coaching over there. So I don't see him, the way I don't see him as a failure. I think, like I said, I think he's a very, very, very competent coach. I wish they would have given him more opportunity at America,
Yeah.
but like, I mean, I don't think he did all that bad in America. I mean, like I said, I think he had a rocky relationship with the press. But I mean, he did well in Leon. He's doing well in Toluca. I fairly well in America. I mean, he did. They did win the Conca champions
Hmm.
and stuff like that. But again, like I said, I think no one can question his curriculum. Nobody.
Yeah. It's tough, for I think if you're a Toluca fan, it must be tough to see that go down. It looked like they had secured like the comeback, and then Tigres kind of ruined the party. But what happens now is we have a semifinal showdown, and it's Monterrey versus Tigres, and it's Chivas versus America, and you couldn't have scripted a better semifinal. And I feel like every team has
Actually,
been exposed
actually, actually, I would have preferred America Chivas,
in the
or
final.
a combination of them, like America Chivas and Cruz Azul Cruz Azul Pumas. Personally, that's what to me, that's the ideal semifinal.
All right,
You know,
guys, hold on, hold on. Before we
I
go
get where
too
you're coming
forward,
from, like the top 4 teams, but like what I see with these finals is like old school, like traditional clubs. Even though America's been around since the '80s because they're a TV product, and then on the other bracket, you have like that new school, like new money, trying to power their way into and trying to say they're bigger than America, they're bigger than Chivas because they have the money, they have the trophies in the last 10 years. And then out of that, you're going to get a final with the same thing. You're going to get a final with history and tradition versus a final of almost like Mexico's own version of oil clubs.
Yeah.
So I like it. I like the setup for it.
Did you
I like
say
it too.
Did you say America's a product, a television product?
Yes, America is a television product. America used to play in Seoul. America used to have a little bird as a logo, and then you guys got bought out by Azteca. I mean Azteca by Televisa. They changed your mascot. They changed your kit. They sent you to Azteca. They put you on primetime television so people will start watching your games.
You don't know
What was
history.
America called before you America? I can't remember the name, but it's some little bird or something.
No, Canarios, Cremas,
Or
Millonarios.
Canarios, or whatever it was.
But there was a crest, a logo. It was a triangle, and it had an eagle. So the eagle isn't foreign to America. And okay, and if you want to talk about a commercial product, Chivas, they were making movies in the 50s and 60s. They were in movies.
Yes, but Chivas was in movies. But Chivas was going to Europe on tours and going head to head with European teams and getting great results because Chivas had great players. Chava Reyes at his time was a great player.
And America, they were the ones that took Mexican soccer abroad to the 1928 Amsterdam Olympics, to the 1930 World Cup. It was their people. So I mean, America, the fact, the whole thing that they're just a Televisa product from the 80s, that is just a lie. That is a complete and utter lie. They've been there since the beginning. They were the superstars. They were the ones that knocked out, basically, that took out the European communities. Like when like you had like all the like Asturias and España and Germania and all those, when it was just the European like expat communities. America's the one that dominated them and won four titles in a row in the 20s, from 1924 to 1928, and that was the base that went to Amsterdam for the Olympics. That was the base that went to the 1930 World Cup, and stuff like that. So if it wasn't for America,
they were also
and they scored 4 touchdowns in one game.
What's that?
Wasn't like the 19 World Cup Mexico like last place?
But I'm saying, why wasn't it Chivas then? Why wasn't it Chivas, taking the initiative?
Hey, look, I'm just gonna say, like, I'm not gonna argue with you about the love for your team, but me looking at the neutral point.
I have receipts.
Well, I'm not gonna debate. I'm not gonna debate.
Hey, wait, como que te dolió, no?
All I'm gonna say is that Televisa is known for its corruption. Televisa has their fingers in every. Well, not anymore. Now they have more competition. But they used to have their fingers in every corner of Mexican media. If Televisa didn't want something on the news, they would be able to block that. And you're going to tell me the team that they control, the team that they have on primetime TV, that they have no outside influences for that? You're telling me Mexico has so much corruption at a government level, at a police level, that's not going to have corruption in its sports, and the team that is backed by the biggest media company in the country is not going to be favored in that result?
I'm going to debunk
it. It would not be a Clásico Nacional, though, without Televisa.
Round 1, let's fight!
I'm going to debunk that right now. If Televisa is as corrupt as you want to say it is, okay, in terms of soccer.
I'm not saying that.
No. Even past. I'll do you one more. I'll go to the 1970s. Why would the Cañedos and why would Azcárraga Milmo invite a nobody, a fucking small club from Jaso Hidalgo? I'm referring to Cruz Azul. Give them, I said, hey, give them a Mexico City fan base. Give them Azteca. Give them basically, notoriety. Why would they do that?
Because it's a product. You create a rivalry. Just how you
Okay,
got Madrid versus Atletico, Atlas versus Guadalajara.
so
You
the thing
create a
about this.
crosstown rival. It's a product.
Okay, no, but what I'm saying is, okay, if they were if they had sinister intentions, okay, they would have suppressed Seul. They would have never brought. They would have never convinced. What's the name? Alvarez's father to bring in Cementos is Cruz Azul into Mexico City. Those guys, one of the things that you have to commend Azcárraga Milmo and is that he knows something. He knows that the high tide raises all boats. So he wanted a strong league. That's why he also wanted That's why in fact it was what's his name, Cañedo, and the guy from Cruz Azul that was basically saying, hey, let's kind of emulate what the NFL is doing and the Major League Baseball. Let's have some playoffs. So it's like this whole thing that it's just to favor America. It's just to favor America. That has been the biggest bunch of bullshit. That's been that's been told in Mexican sports.
So you're saying that some big shot over at the Wiener Company got together with some big shot at the Bun Company and decided to rip off the American public. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. No, but I'm just saying it's just people. The typical Mexican fan is a fucking idiot. I'll say that. Okay, they are, and part of that is because they lack common sense, and they listen to these the Mexican pundits who are fucking idiots. Most of all, I'd say 99% of the Mexican sport pundits are fucking idiots, because they talk about, like, for example, in Jose Ramon and all those guys. Those are they're just idiots.
Well, Ron, I remember that used to be the big talking point of the refs favor America, and the journals would always say that in America's on a 13-year dry streak.
Exactly. It's like,
how are they favoring them again?
To this day, okay, there has never been a case where the league brings in a foreign ref to coach a playoff match. They did that for America Monterrey in the early '90s. In fact, what's his name, Hugo Sanchez played for them. And if you go back to that game, America was robbed by that Costa Rican ref Urea or whatever his name was. But that's what I'm saying. It's
well, you guys got Pro 85, so you win some, you lose some.
It doesn't take away that's a product. It's an entertainment product.
That's all the football though. That's pretty much if you look at all the clubs, that's pretty much every club too. And
that's every league. That's every league, every sport.
Every league now. I'm saying it started as a product. It did not start organically. It got boosted.
Yeah, but if you don't have Televisa, then I don't think soccer will be what it is now in Mexico, because they made it like national by televising, and it's not just TV. They also had radio and newspapers and all that, but then they also were instrumental in bringing the 2 World Cups. So they played a big role in the whole country embracing, because it wasn't football, like as Ron was saying before, all these other clubs like the Asturias, of Germania, they even had Euskadi.
You have the Boston national team and stuff like that.
The average Mexican saw soccer as a foreigner sport. And if even you go that far back, it was expensive to play soccer because they wouldn't make soccer cleats or even uniforms in Mexico. All of that got shipped in. And even if you had a copy of the rules, they were in English. So it was like.
All right, you need to give me a time frame here. I don't know if you're talking 1920s or 1970s.
Yeah, 20s going up. It was even going up until probably the 50s, around the time that all it changed. But if you go that far back when it was being played, you had the other sports that were had as much as popularity. I mean, wrestling was huge to the point that you had movies. Wrestling in Mexico, they were doing Avengers way before, man. You had Santos versus Mummies, and you even had Santos Mis Máscaras Blue Demon versus whatever those dudes were ahead of the time, man.
Well, hey, if you really think about it, like Seoul was not built for soccer; it was built for American football.
And Olympia.
Yeah, exactly. Estadio Universitario, where Tigres plays, was really meant for football. The original.
Yeah, if you look at their logos, Ron, if you look at their old logos,
Yeah.
they look like American university type.
Oh, yeah. So like the three, El Tec, el Tecnológico, the one that Rayados used to play in before the new one. That one was also built for
Football.
for
Right?
pointy ball. Yeah. But the point is, even before Televisa, or it wasn't Televisa, it was actually Telesistema, which became Televisa. But even before they got into the mix in the 50s, they had the radio wars. So you had you had the radio wars basically fighting as to who would have access to the games, in Mexico City, in Parque Necaxa, Parque España, Parque Asturias, and all that shit and stuff like that. So it's always been a business. In fact, to the point where, in fact, Necaxa didn't want to join the professional league when we're actually coming up on 1943, 2003. Yeah, we're going. What is it? But anyhow, no. So Necaxa didn't join the league when they went professional, quote unquote, in 1943 because they were against professionalism. They wanted to be. They still wanted the players to be amateur, quote unquote, but technically they weren't amateurs. They were getting paid.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it reminds me of have you guys seen the English game?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it's like they were paying players and they weren't supposed to, and they didn't like that. But yeah, it was it was all supposed to be about like sportsmanship and being part of a club or whatnot. So yeah, it's interesting how the game had evolved.
If you read like the history of Mexican soccer and stuff like that, the schism between going from professional or from amateurism to professionalism is actually really fascinating, and there was a lot of infighting between the federations, the leagues, the clubs, and for a while, the amateur, the federations basically were taking advantage because it was the clubs that were building and buying, land, and they were building their casa club, like their country clubs, their field houses, their stadiums and stuff like that. But it was the federation that wanted to keep the money from the gates, and so there was that friction that basically it's like, said no. I said, it's like, screw you guys. We're the ones that are investing our money building these stadiums and stuff like that. We're going to keep keep the receipts, at the gate. And that mentality came about basically almost prior to the World Cup in 1970, because the first division, and this is a key moment into how it was good and bad for Mexican soccer, because prior to the 1970 World Cup, the amateur sector in Mexico controlled, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the book in front of me, but they controlled like 70% of the votes, and basically that was the amateur sector. And then like the first division, second division, and the third division, they controlled hardly anything of the voting. So then the first division club says, you know what? We're the ones that basically draw the crowds. We're the ones that make money. Go screw yourself. So they had a meeting in Querétaro, and they had a meeting in Querétaro, and they basically gave the first division and says, look, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna give ourselves 55% of the voting stock, and then like the second division gets like 15, the third gets this, and then the amateur sector is only gonna get this. So the amateur sector basically went from having 70 something or 60 something percent to like 5%. And what's interesting about this, because at one point the most powerful man in Mexican soccer was the guy, the CONCACAF president that was before what's his name, Jack Warner. Oh shit, I can't remember his name. So he was the most powerful guy in Mexican soccer, and then from one day to another, he basically he became a nobody, and he despised Cañedo because Cañedo was basically now the you know the big dick now in Mexican soccer. You know, he's the one that helped bring the World Cup and stuff like that. So the guy, what's his name? That was named Joaquin Soraya Terrazas. That was the guy's name.
Mexican. He was Mexican.
Yes, he was the Mexican. In fact, they had the offices in Guatemala and stuff like that. So then what happened was that when the whole Cachirules thing came out, he basically screwed over Mexico.
He took it to FIFA.
To stay in the good to stay in the good graces of the minnows like the Central American and the Caribbean, you know, FAs. He basically just so he could retain power. He kind of basically fucked over Mexico, and in reality,
just really quick run because I think the first punishment was just for the youth team. Like they took away their qualification and they were suspended for 2 years. But this is what got a bit confused. Did the FMF take the case to FIFA and then FIFA was like,
so basically that's what happened.
Everyone's getting.
So that was for the Olympics, okay, and for the one that was going to be in Korea, Korea. So they were not supposed to. They were going to get suspended from that, but then Rafael del Castillo, who at the time was the president of the federation, he says, you know what, screw this. I'm going to go above CONCACAF, which in reality was going above what's his name, Joaquin Soraya Terrazas, right? And says, you know, screw them. So then, you know, the guy took that personally. So he went to his, you know, his FIFA exec, you know, VPs and say, hey, that was our ruling. That's what's going to stick. So then FIFA came down. But there was but there's been, you know, there was talk.
Wasn't Cañedo a VP though for FIFA?
Well, here's the thing though. This is where they wanted the U.S. to qualify.
But they weren't going to play Mexico, though. Like, Mexico wasn't going to cross it.
I know, but here's the thing. The U.S. was going to host, the U.S. was going to host the 94 World Cup, right? So the thing about it is, had Mexico not been kicked out, disqualified from the 90 World Cup, okay? In most likelihood, you know, the two teams that would have gone to the World Cup in 1990 would have been Costa Rica and Mexico. So that means that the U.S. wouldn't have participated in the 90 World Cup, and that's what because FIFA, you know, they wanted to basically start growing the game in the U.S. and stuff.
Growing it again because this was the whole thing with the politics, because the U.S. sent Henry Kissinger to try to negotiate for the '86 World Cup. Right. They give it to Mexico, who had just hosted it like what 20 years prior.
They hosted it in '70, and then they hosted it again in '86. But that's because Colombia was not able to.
Yeah, the earthquake. Or no. Mexico had their. Colombia was before.
No, Colombia. No, what happened was Colombia when they put the bid for it, it was still a 16-team tournament. So then.
Oh, that's right. They were 24.
So FIFA went to 24. Colombia said, we don't have the money, we don't have the resource to take it to 24. So then it was between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. Canada didn't have the infrastructure. U.S. obviously had the infrastructure, but there's one thing that they could not do to FIFA. They couldn't give guarantees. They couldn't give guarantees that the stadium would basically have all the sponsorships of the FIFA, you know, of the FIFA, like the FIFA partners, like, you know, because in fact in one of the books that I read, and this was when Sepp Blatter was vice president, was that his fear was that, you know, they wouldn't, you know, that you would go to, like, for example, Joe Robbie Stadium in Miami at the time, and they wouldn't be able to get all the sponsors and you know and stuff like that from that stadium. So they knew that they could count on Mexico and get assurances from not only the you know the federation president, but they would also get the assurances from the actual Mexican president, you know, of the country, that like whatever stadium he wants, whatever stuff like that, boom, you're gonna get, you know. So, but like I said, I mean, that shit, we went on a tangent, didn't we?
we
Dude,
we sent him
man.
another run.
I I actually wanted to commend Al Pastor because he did bring up an interesting topic. I really hadn't looked at the semifinals like this, but you know, again, this is why we have these discussions about the
The new versus old.
the old money and the new money. You know, it's an interesting story, right? Because you do have the Tigres and Monterrey that have gotten a lot of money over the last decade, and it's starting to show, right? They keep having these reoccurring finals and championships and whatnot, but we do have the try to the two biggest clubs in Mexico, Chivas and America, and they're like, hey, no, we got something to say about this. So it's going to be interesting showdown no matter who the finalists are. But as we do look into the semifinals, like every team has been exposed, right? We saw Tigres almost blow it in the return leg against Toluca. Monterrey again have been unimpressive, and Chivas are lucky to be in the semifinals. Atlas had dominated them in majority of the series, and then America, coming in against the San Luis, and didn't really close the show the way the fans would have wanted. So going into these semifinals, like who do you guys see as the favorites or that may potentially have the advantage?
To me, the favorite is Tigres. I will say, me personally, Tigres, North America, them and LAFC have the biggest depth out of the two countries as far as roster wise. And Tigres is that team that, they've gotten complacent maybe from making so many finals that they know they need to turn up when it matters. And they have a good combination of youth, they have a good combination of experience. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. Like, they're just going to turn up when it matters. And then speaking of Monterrey, where they haven't been impressive, that's just Busa ball, man. That's all Busa is about. Just getting the result. Everyone sees the lineup, they see the players. You think they're going to come out and spank 3-0, 4-0? Hey, if it happens by accident, take it. But you can tell Busa is more about not getting scored on and just getting the result. If he'll move on to the final with 2 draws, he'll take it. As far as the least favorite, it's Chivas for sure. If you take Pocho and Vega out of that roster, Chivas is a 9th to 12th place team. If you take those two guys out, so if those two guys don't show up to play one game, it'll show. Just like how it showed against Atlas the first game. And then America, they just got to fight their demons that they always fight, where they're favorites throughout the tournament, and then they get to the playoffs and something happens.
It's funny that you bring up as far as like who do you think is the biggest club. As of right now, CONCACAF did come out with their rankings, and they have Rayados as number 1, America as number 2, LAFC as number 3, and Chivas as number 4, Tigres at number 5. So yeah, according to CONCACAF, that is how we rank.
Now I'm assuming that's based off points acquired throughout the last.
I don't know what it's based off of because like Chivas have no. Why are they there, dude? I know we won a Conca Champions League in what 2018?
Yeah.
I mean that was like 5 years ago, man. 6 years ago almost.
Aren't they going to play in the League's Cup or whatever it's called?
Yeah, everyone's playing in the League's Cup. It's a participation trophy. But Chivas have qualified for the next Champions League. Yes.
There you go. That's part of it. It's to hype up those matches. Chivas might not be the league champion, but they're like what the 4th best team of the region. And now you have your talking point now for the for the press and the media and all that.
Well, I mean, what numbers did Chivas finish last tournament? They finished like 5th or 6th?
No. Chivas finished in 9th.
Oh, they finished 9th?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking if it was a point-based thing throughout the last 2 tournaments, maybe, but no, they finished 9th.
Yeah.
Then never mind.
No. You know, the beauty about the semifinals is you do have 180 minutes to do something about it, right? So, Chivas, because they finished in third, will actually host the first game. In my opinion, I think is an advantage because we haven't had a strong homestand and we haven't had a good favorable like result against America at home. Um, but in El Azteca, I feel like Chivas have everything going for them. Like a lot of fans from Chivas show up. It almost feels like our second home at times. And if we do want to throw in some numbers into this mix, the last time Chivas played America in the Liguilla, we defeated them. This is back in the quarterfinals 2020 under Vucetic and the Chicotazos. So, at least in recent history, Chivas do have the advantage. But obviously, we saw what happened in regular season this year, and Chivas were exposed pretty bad. So they're gonna have to play very well defensively, kind of like how they played in the second leg against Atlas. I think Moso really surprised me, and Chiquete as well. Man, they had those players in their back pocket all day. But
Yeah, they made it to this round because of that defense.
my
Most of
question
the
is,
teams
where
are
the
hitting.
fuck are the goals gonna come from? Because we don't have a striker, and we haven't been playing with the striker.
Hey man, Pauno needs to call Guardiola and ask him how he won last year without a striker. That's it. Playing false nine. That's your only option. But I don't know how they drop money on Rios and he's not starting. Tells you about how terrible he is. Charal, he misses like every chance in the world. I don't know, but I think they need to bring back Pulido. I'm trying to meet Pulido this Saturday, and if I do get the chance, I'm gonna beg him to come back.
Oh, why? Where is he coming?
It's St. Louis versus Kansas
Oh,
City, and it's a rivalry. It's like considered a derby because they're both from the same state. St. Louis is like calls themselves the capital of soccer in the U.S. because it goes back 100 plus years, and
interesting.
soccer in Kansas has only been around for 20 years, but they're calling themselves the capital of American
Well,
soccer.
the
But
Kansas
anyway,
City Wizards, it was the Kansas City Wizards. They were an original MLS team in 90, 95, 96. Whenever they, did this professional league.
Te mamaste, Jaime, te mamaste.
yeah, no, but St. Louis has history. Like the U.S. Open Cup. St. Louis has
Yeah,
won
it's
like
like
the
a
U.S.
hundred.
Open Cup like 9 times.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
that thing's like 100 over or like 100 years old, dude.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that
Like
there was another professional soccer
1920
team
or
in
something.
St. Louis. That's why I was surprised.
yeah, like
No, they've
19.
had A League, and yeah.
Were they part of like the with the NASL? Did they have an ANSL team?
No,
No.
No, there's like the first like legit team they have, like the 1950 World Cup, where like the U.S. beat England. Like 6 of the starters were from St. Louis. Like St. Louis
Oh
has a
wow,
lot of soccer history.
that's
They
crazy.
just
Why did
never
it take
had
them so long
they,
to get a professional team or like to get in the MLS? I guess.
no ownership team ever wanted to put down the
Oh,
money and everything. Same reason Stan Kroenke took the Rams from St. Louis to LA.
huh.
No one which just wanted to invest into it. But no,
Interesting.
the history's there. But anyways, Pulido gonna show up an hour early to the warm ups, wear my Chivas jersey, try to get his attention, and beg him to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I
he's
wouldn't.
gonna tell you it's not up to him.
Well, that's what I'm telling him. I'm
Mark my
telling him,
words.
tell Hierro to make amends between you and Amauri because it needs to happen. If you were on the team right now, we would actually have a legit chance at winning this thing.
Yeah, Pulido is definitely missing from this team. I mean, when we look at that 2017 championship run, I mean, he scored one of the goals in the final and was instrumental, right? So we definitely need a player like that. And unfortunately, Macias was supposed to be that guy, and you know, he got injured.
Yeah, I just don't have any hope for Messias. How we were talking about earlier before, how they got to get like financial advisors, preps, and all that. I think they got to loan Macias out because if Macias comes back and he doesn't respond, in the first tournament with the numbers people expect, I think it's going to get to his head. Or even worse, if he gets injured again. I think they got to loan him out to maybe the MLS somewhere where he has no pressure and he has like good doctors and everything around him just to the best of his care and just be out of the public eye. Because if he gets one more injury, that kid is done. That kid's going to retirement. Back-to-back ACL injuries, and then you come back in another injury, or you don't put up the numbers people expect, he's cooked.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm liking these semis. I'm gonna. I hate Vucetic. I'd rather have Tigres in the final, but maybe because Monterrey is gonna have home field advantage, right? So I would rather have Tigres and get a rematch of 2017. Man, let's play them again.
Well, doesn't like Monterrey own America? America own Tigres. Chivas owns Tigres. Like they kind of each have like the upper hand on each other. So
In
either
finals,
way, yeah, either way, what pans out is going to be interesting.
yeah. Speaking of Monterrey and ownership and all that, there was an announcement made earlier today about Televisa. It looks like Rayados and Cholos are going to be leaving Fox and they're going to be under, TUDN and Univision again.
You mean the owners that are in the FMF commission are all going to be in Televisa?
The TV rights.
No, I know, but they're already like they all clicked up
Oh, they
when
did?
they did the FMF, the selección, the comisión, with the Mauri and all of those guys. They're the same
Oh,
group. They were like, you know, and I think that was the part probably why damn Pachuca guy was pissed off because he was trying to get a bunch of teams to buy Fox, right?
Yeah, Jesus Martinez, he went on Picante a couple weeks ago, stuff like that. But you can't, you got to take what he says with a grain of salt because, I mean,
I know, but that was it, Ron. If you look at it, this
here's the
is
thing.
Televisa already forming its, like its stronghold.
Here's the thing. It was Grupo Pachuca, the one that started this whole bullshit about leaving. Okay, because I mean everything was fine. Everything was fine when you just had Televisa and TV Azteca and basically Grupo Salinas and Grupo TV and Grupo Televisa. They had the agreement. Okay, this year the team that gets promoted, you get the rights. Following year, I get the rights. In fact, there was a time when there was a point where what's the name? Necaxa had basically won promotion again, and it was owned by what do you call it? By Televisa, but it was actually TV Azteca that had the rights. So I mean, things were smoother, I mean, and for the fans, we had access to all the games. And then basically, Grupo Pachuca get in there, and they started getting a little cute. It's like, oh no, we don't want to negotiate with TV Azteca. We don't want to negotiate with anymore. We don't want to negotiate with what's the name, Televisa, and stuff like that. So they started started doing their own thing, and then Chivas starts doing their own shit as well. And it's just like right now it's a mess, man.
Well, that was the whole Chivas thing where they were when Higuera, and then they were kind of partnering up with Grupo Pachuca because when they win the title under Almeida, that's where all the players came from. The bulk of players were all León and Pachuca players.
Yeah,
and so they were like.
So that whole bullshit, with Jesus Martinez and talking about we were gonna give Bielsa not the coaching gig, but we were gonna have a talk with him about him being the sporting director and this and this. I mean, it's and then he's basically playing to the crowd and playing to the emotion that the fans have a right, están hasta la madre and shit like that. I'm thinking, what a fucking scumbag, dude. It's like he's basically playing to the emotions, and trying to feel like he's some sort of, he's just in it. He's just in it for the sake.
He's adding more fuel to Al Pastor's fire for
America dude.
Hate Televisa.
And it's like, no tiene códigos, kind of like what. That's what's the name? Paco Ramirez, eyeliner guy. what he said about Scapone. The guy he hit right now, like that final Celaya Morelia. Well, anyway, that's a different thing. No, but so no, like I said, I wouldn't take what he says. I'd take it with a grain of salt, man, because that guy, you
Well,
know,
no, it's for the TV is what I'm trying to say. It's all right now, you want to say streaming, but I think this is a huge W for Televisa now that it has all these clubs under its wing, and I think Chivas is part of that too. Um, so, because I think that the rights are going to be in dispute after the World Cup, the TV rights, and
oh
so
yeah,
those are more votes in the favor of
that's that's when I predict after the 2026 World Cup. That's when I predict that there's going to be some serious power struggles in the because I don't think that they're going to rock the boat right now, but I see it coming. And like for example, I mean, you have the Grupo Orlegui, you have the Grupo Pachuca. Obviously, you got the Televisa people,
yeah, but we could say Grupo Orlegui is already with. Seems like Televisa just checkmate, dude, with this, the recent announcement because Grupo Orlegui's, them being part of the Comisión, there's obviously they're working with Televisa, and then Chivas is there too now. Um, so then with Monterrey and Cholos was there too as well, but I think they made it official. I don't. I don't. I think. Yeah. I think it's. I think it's check and mate, Ron.
Uh,
Jaque mate, dude.
I don't know, man. Like I said, dude, I mean, I personally look, like I said, I know what to expect with Televisa. I know what to expect with, Salinas, Grupo Salinas. I don't, and I really don't trust, I wouldn't trust the Federation in the hands of, of Grupo Pachuca. I really wouldn't. I think that they're, in many ways, I think that like I said, look, I'm happy that they're a serious ownership group, but I think that they can be a cancer.
Well, folks, we're almost at the 2 hour mark. I want to give you guys time for your closing thoughts for this episode. Thank you all for all hopping on today. And yeah, if you have any predictions about the semis and how they'll go, want to hear that. But if you have anything else on your mind, now's the time.
I want to talk about Nacho Ambriz, guys. All right.
Have you accepted Nacho as your Lord and Savior?
Bro, all right. La garra que le metió. Dude, I would have loved to have seen that in the national team. You guys can't tell me that team doesn't have fight in it. That he knows how to engage his team and that he sends them out con el cuchillo entre los dientes. All right? Because that team was going out to kill. Yes, he fucked up on setting the line of 5 on the back way too early.
Yep.
But he could have done it. All right? And that's something that you cannot teach. That is something that a coach
he hasn't done anything that Piojo hasn't done with the Mexican national team, bro. Piojo did the same fucking thing.
We had the conversation. Do you want to give Piojo back the team then?
I do.
I don't.
I'm a Piojo believer.
We need to evolve, man. We can't.
Exactly. So why can't we take a couple steps back?
Because we're gonna get exactly the same result.
I don't think so. I think we can do it.
I don't think any coach is capable of getting us past the round of 16.
You said evolve though, but Piojo's run with the selección is one of the best ever.
Dude, no coach has given us anything past the round of 16 since '86, bro.
But that's at home, Look at the amount of goal scores and how they played the teams. All of the games. It's one of the best World Cups of Mexico ever. If you factor all of that stuff.
I'm gonna say it till I die, man. Nacho Prado's my Lord and Savior. All right, he's
I
won
think
my
he'll
heart,
get.
and I think he can do it.
I think he'll get a shot. Maybe not this time, but like Ron said, that guy's gonna be around for a while.
He
So yeah, I
better
see
be.
him.
Now, moving forward as to the games coming up this weekend, I'm not sure, man. I'm shaky. Everybody in here got very close to the sneaky pinky. Let's roll. All right, like you were very close to getting bounced out. America, don't get overconfident. That's the one thing that kills you, right? Chivas, guys, you have to want it. You really have to want it. Now, Buse, I don't think he's gonna, like you guys said, he's just gonna bunker down. He doesn't care if he can get a 0-0 draw. He'll take it. So Siboldi has to go out to kill. But if you, like you guys said, in the away match, you could see Guignac's age. He was slow. He couldn't see him the whole match. It was like, where the fuck is he? So it's going to be interesting whatever happens. If anything, my call is that we're going to be seeing Tigres versus America, the old school versus the new school. And I will say that soccer stays in the north.
All right. It's a nice hot take. Thanks for hopping on, man. Oh, before you go, Westgas, who is this kid and why is he being linked to PSV and there's another rumor, Spain. Is he?
Well, because Santi has gassed him up a lot, right? He's always talking about like, yo, we came up together. He's the next player who's gonna be coming up. He's good, and he has been. We talked about him. I want to say 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. I was down in Arizona, but I hopped on and we talked about him. How he lit up, right? He's doing really well. He's just a young prospect who's coming from the academia, and if you watch him, he doesn't give up the balls. He's going after it. He's a very, very promising young talent. Al Pastor, I want to think, was the one who shouted him out a couple of weeks back, and I was like, yeah, dude, I've been keeping my eye on him. He's doing good things, and he is going to be one of the next up and comers if we follow the process and send them over to like the Eredivisie.
Okay. All right, cool. Who's next? Al Pastor, what you got for me?
Personally, looking at the first leg, I think if Chivas gets away with even a 1-0, I think it'll favor them. Watching what America did versus San Luis, the more time that goes on, the more the fans might start turning on them. And then, just get that 2-0 and it's a wrap. It's interesting. Everyone's doing the comparisons of Chivas 2017 to now and how the coincidences are there. But
Yeah,
it's like people forget that, we made that final just on draws. And it's
drawing.
not an option. There's not an option this season, and we don't have a striker. So I don't think Chivas needs to go out and get the kill versus America. Even a 1-0 helps. And then just go and put the pressure on them. You're at home. You come beat us and maybe get them on the counter. With tomorrow's game, I think it's a draw or Tigres barely gets the win. Because I think Busa, same thing. He's going for the draw. But if I had to make my prediction of what the final's going to be, I probably would go with America Tigres as well.
Damn. Ron?
But honestly, what I'm really worried about first is Champions League tomorrow. I need Madrid.
Oh, okay.
Madrid. And then I'll focus on Liga MX.
You want Madrid to win?
Yes, I'm a big Madrid fan, so that's all I care about tomorrow. And then Thursday, I'll worry about Chivas. And then Sunday, I'll worry about Chivas again.
Nice. My A's just had a walk-off win. I think it's their first win in like a long time. So, sending you the good energies. I cannot stand City and Pep Guardiola, so I also do hope that Madrid handle business tomorrow. Because if not, we're going to get a very boring final. I mean, the other finalist is Inter Milan. No disrespect to them, but I don't know. They're not a sexy team. And, yeah. They played a bunch of Italian teams to get to the final, so I'm not convinced that they can lift the trophy at the end of the season. The winner of the Champions League is going to come out of this match tomorrow for sure. Ron, what you got for us?
I read that MLS is getting a new team in San Diego, highest franchise fee. Almost
500.
what half a billion. And like when I read that, and then I was like, for comparison, like for example, with like was it Toronto when they came in, or who was it? Like back, in 07 or whatever.
Chivas USA
Their
too.
the franchise fee was like what 15 million or 15 million. So I'm like, Jesus, I think that's the route that Liga MX is going to take. You know,
Maybe.
but no, no, I think that you know, I think America plays better when they're actually counterattacking, and them having them playing in Guadalajara. Chivas is forced to take the game to America. I mean, if Chivas plays like how they did, because Chivas sat back. Chivas sat back the first game and stuff like that, and America really took it to them,
Yeah.
and obviously they had really good results. I honestly thought that game was going to be 5-0, 6-0, but and even then, obviously America scored 4 goals in that game and stuff. But having said that, if Chivas changes tactics and actually tries to propose and opens up a little, I think I think Chivas is going to have a long night because I do think that America plays a lot better when they're counterattacking rather than basically keeping possession. I think they're really good on those fast breaks, like what's the name, Fidalgo and Martin and Cabecita and stuff like that. So I think uh, on paper, I I think Ames just a more well-rounded team, and play position line by line. I think America is going to win, but I think I do think that Chivas has more pressure.
Okay. Joel, what you got for us? Joel's washing dishes.
No dishes. Oh, I was just muted. No, I don't agree with Ron on the pressure. As you said, Jaime, earlier, she was just getting to semis. It's been a huge W. As long as they don't get washed against Ame, they will be seen as a really good tournament and something they could build on. Seeing Ame sort of, you know, not being able to handle San Luis, it should give some more hope to Chivas, although Chivas is not playing well. Um, so I think it could be an interesting match. I would say I'm his favorites. If Chivas plays their card right, then should it's not like it's not like it's going to be that difficult to for
Yeah.
them to beat America. It's not like an impossible task. Um, but then the big talking point, and yeah, El Pastor, he took it from me, dude. I had it, the new versus old. Uh, but I think we should add to that list Santos and Pachuca. So you have the traditional ones, or America, Chivas, Pumas, Cruz Azul. But going back to say about '09, if you look at all the finals that have been getting played, and you're going to see a lot of Santos, Pachuca, Monterrey, and Tigres.
You could say
And
Santos and Pachuca are kind of like the Moneyball teams. Not a lot of money, but
yes,
kind of can get results.
yeah, yeah, great point, because and that's also the big difference in how these uh, clubs operate, with the Norte teams being the big money teams. I think it was Cesar Pastor also said it, sort of like the version of the oil money, because of the big companies tied to them, which I believe both have extended their contracts for like 30 years. Uh, so you see these two clubs bringing in the top players and spending the most, and then the other clubs being more methodical. Santos and Pachuca. And I sort of like Ame sort of falls in the middle because they were the biggest spenders and they sort of stopped doing that. And they've been just more careful of what players they bring. And a bit surprising recently where they're getting all these MLS rejects and then just, bringing them back. So, but I mean, I'm not saying this like in a negative way because America's been one of the most consistent teams. So, they found what works for them. But I think so for Chivas, man, they need to stay on it if they want to be competing because those are the teams they're gonna have to be competing with. The ones mentioned, obviously Cruz Azul as well. So yeah, that puts Chivas right up at 0, 2, 4, 5, around sixth place. They're probably like the sixth team, dude. It's crazy. And yeah, Pastor was saying it again about how you took away 2 players and Chivas lost to 12. And that's kind of what we've seen recently because Guzman arrived and Chivas went from being like that 8th, 9th team, although, they jumped up to 4th. So, so yeah, I think in the finals, obviously going to be, one of the newer teams that I know fans, they don't want to say they're grandes, but to me, they are the new bigger teams. And with one of the more traditional, and you've had some of these matchups already. We've seen them already. So we've seen them already. Chivas beat Tigres 17. I think Tigres beat America. But I mean, you could go down and you could see a lot of these teams matching up already in the final. But I think games like this are just going to start becoming more common. That's my take.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I find interesting is this is Pau's first season in Liga MX coaching Chivas, and he's gotten us to a semifinal. And this is without us having a legitimate number 9 striker. And this is also, Yedl's first, crack at this Chivas project. And we're already at semis. So I can't imagine, regardless of what happens this weekend, I can't imagine what the future for Chivas holds if they do finally secure like a bomba, striker or just a couple of more signings. I think this team can definitely yield results and finally win some silverware. So I'm feeling really optimistic about Chivas' future, and I hope that these clásicos live up to the hype. A lot of the times these matches go, boring. They, teams don't want to give out too much, so they don't take risks, and they, end up having some boring ass matches. But, so far for Liguilla, the tone has been goals and drama and obviously a lot of controversy with some of these refereeing calls. So, no doubt that this week, on Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to have some entertaining matches. And of course, the return legs on the weekend. So, the football gods have definitely blessed us this weekend, and I hope everyone has a chance to enjoy them. And of course, want to thank everyone for hopping on tonight, and of course, we'll catch you all in the next one. Good night, guys.